Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the webinar today. It's 2:57 p.m. UAE time, so we're set to start in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much for waiting. Thank you for being keen to join on time, and I hope that this webinar will be enjoyable and beneficial in the same time. Just bear with me for the next 2 minutes, and then we will start right on time. Meanwhile, if you have any technical problem, if you cannot see my screen, my video is not clear, or my voice is breaking, please let me know. Maybe the problem is from my end, so we can resolve it right away. So just for the sake of testing, if you don't mind just sending me anything on the chat, just to make sure that you can hear me well and you can see the screen properly. If you can do that, just can you confirm through the chat? Excellent. Mukhtar, thank you so much for that. Thanks for confirming. All right, Amna, Jelaine, thank you so much for confirming that. I guess we can start in less than a minute. So get ready for this webinar that concerns training, return on investment. I know it's mostly a very interesting topic for L&D professionals in specific and for HR professionals in general, because it relates to how we can position our services as beneficial for the organization. So thank you very much for joining, and I hope that you will enjoy these 45 minutes that we're going to spend together. So allow me first to thank you again for joining the webinar entitled Training Return on Investment, Challenges and Solutions, presented to you today by Meirc Training and Consulting. Now, for those of you who we didn't have the chance to meet before, I'd like to quickly introduce our company. Meirc is a training and consulting company. As the name implies, it was founded 64 years ago in Beirut in 1958. And then through these 64 years, we had the opportunity to serve clients in GCC, Middle East, Europe, Asia, and Africa through our public courses, in-house courses, consulting services, and executive coaching services as well. The company has gone through several milestones, several challenges, and it grew interestingly through these years. In 1991, we moved headquarters to UAE, specifically to Dubai. And then we started our expansion in 2004. We had a branch in Abu Dhabi, and then we had our first branch in Saudi. Our second branch in Saudi has launched this year as well. And we have partners all over these areas that help us to reach to our clients. In 2019, just before the pandemic hit, we were preparing for the launch of our virtual learning solutions. Thank God this happened in the right time. We were able to cope with the situation as good as possible. I'm not saying that was a nice time to have, to be honest, but that was an opportunity as well for us to speed up the development of our virtual solutions. So that's the company. The company's name stands for the 5 values that we strive to live by on daily basis: mastery, excellence, innovation, reliability, and client centricity. And here comes this webinar to strengthen the value of client centricity, where we seek to always build this kind of trusted partnership with our clients to ensure that we always stand by them and we offer them topics that are mainly in need. The courses that we are offering nowadays are more than 300, and they come in several categories delivered by subject matter experts who are full-time consultants with Meirc Training and Consulting, whether it is in human resources management or in supply chain, in IT management, in leadership, in customer service, in finance, and in planning, etc. All these courses are designed to suit the needs of the market, and they have also gained accreditation from the most eminent associations around the world, depending on their category, whether it is from the CMI in terms of management, in ILM for leadership, in ISM for sales management, in PMI with project management, and etc. So that's the company in short. If you would like to know more about it, please honor us with your visit to our website and social media channels. A few words about myself. My name is Rabia. I'd like to introduce myself as a learning addict. Since 2001, I hold 2 master's degrees and 1 bachelor, mainly related to education and human resources. I had the opportunity to work in several organizations in the region, as well as teaching in some universities. And currently, my expertise with Meirc Training and Consulting is around technical human resources training, leadership training, and HR consultancy. That's the introduction in short. I hope everyone has settled down. They are ready to enjoy the topic of today. I don't want to spend more time on the introduction, and let's hit the road right away with our topic of the day, which is training return on investment, challenges, and solutions. I'd like to highlight that at any point in time, please feel free to interrupt me, whether through a chat message or through opening your microphone and asking a question. You can also use the raise hand feature in Zoom to ask any question related to the topic, and I will be gladly answering this question if I know the answer for sure. I would also like to highlight that this webinar is being recorded, so in case you miss a part of it or you'd like to watch it later on, that would be possible through our website, on the webinar tab, and also through our YouTube channel, or in case you would like to recommend it to somebody from your network. So let's start with return on investment. Return on investment itself is a concept that certainly is not exclusive to training and development. Maybe one of the the late departments to use the return on investment is the training and development department, and specific the human resources in general, because these departments, we considered ourselves as service providers, as cost center and not benefit center, not profit centers in the organization. Although I would not really agree with that, especially if we can prove that our activities are offering return on investment for the organization. And by definition, ROI, short for return on investment, is the ratio between the net income and the investment that an individual or an organization decide to make for or hoping for a certain return. And that would apply to marketing, it would apply to supply chain, it would apply to technology, as well as to human resources. And as a matter of fact, the formula itself mathematically speaking, is super simple. Just you can just calculate the cost and the benefit of the training, and then subtract cost from benefit, divided by cost, and multiply it by 100, and here you go, you will get the ratio in percentage. Now, certainly that seems very easy, but there are so many embedded challenges that the practitioners usually face when they want to do that. And I hope that in this webinar, I would be able to cover the most important challenges, and yet, most importantly, offer some practical solutions to some of those challenges if possible. Again, please feel free to ask me questions at any point in time, and whether on the chat or through the recording. And by all means, I would also dedicate the, once I'm done, I will allocate some time for your Q&A session. So that's the ROI, and ROI is usually a performance measure. It's very important for companies, for investors who seek to always get the best out of their business activities. So talking about the ROI, we give a lot of credit to mainly two people who developed our main understanding and practice of measuring and evaluating the impact of training activities. And these two gentlemen are Kirkpatrick and Jack Phillips, those two people who came up with this fantastic model of levels that build on each other to help us evaluate training and development interventions and activities. And allow me to explain a little bit how the model that has been developed first by Kirkpatrick work, and then the addition of that has been done by Mr. Jack Phillips. Certainly, we don't have time to elaborate intensively on that, but I'm pretty sure that most of you are somehow familiar with what you are seeing right now. But just to make sure that we are on the on this, we are aligned in terms of discussion, the Kirkpatrick model initiates at the reaction level, which more or less measures how much the participants of a certain training program were satisfied with the training itself in terms of satisfaction from the topic, from the methodology of delivery, from the logistics, and from the trainer or the provider of training. And that's usually measured through the happy sheets, those papers or QR codes nowadays that you are asked to scan, and it will take you to a certain kind of a survey. And this survey is mainly in three sections. The first section is about the topic, the objectives of the learning, and the material itself. The second one is about the consultant or the trainer offering the training, and three is about the venue, the food, logistics, etc., and your comfort in a conference room. So that's the first level at which we measure the impact or the effectiveness of training programs. And what is suggested by Kirkpatrick, and I guess this is something that most of us miss when we deal with this model, what is suggested is that the better you do in terms of reaction, the more you lay the ground and prepare for the benefit from the second level, which is learning. So the higher the reaction and the more positive the reaction, the more learning will happen. And by learning, Kirkpatrick means the degree to which the participant acquire the intended knowledge, skills, and attitude, and they somehow commit to implementing this during the training itself. And usually, the practice of measuring this is through pre and post exams, through some knowledge transfer. Some companies ask for some presentation for other colleagues, or to write down an executive summary about the training and submit it to management in order to ensure that the learning happens. And again, the assumptions is still the same, the assumption of linearity, that every level builds on the others. Then Kirkpatrick suggested that if reaction happens positively, learning will happen even more effectively, and that would impact the transfer of the learning from the conference room all the way to the workplace. So as you can see, the first two levels are measured inside the conference room mainly. So they are a measure of what happens inside the conference room, in case we are assuming that the main activity about learning is an in-person training, although that's a little bit limited, but let's stick to this assumption for that time. So these two levels are preparing the other levels. The third level is how much participants are transferring what they learn into their day-to-day job. And whether what they learn is behavioral or technical, this level is called behavior, because it means people have changed what they are doing during their day-to-day operation because of the training. And that would be either implementing a new pivot table on Excel, or a new way of running a test in a facility, or whether it is providing constructive feedback for their reportees after a leadership development program. So that's level 3. And level 4 means that all these behaviors that have changed will have an influence or impact on the most important KPIs of the organization. And that would be customer satisfaction, that would be profitability, that would be minimizing loss, that would be cost containment, that would be number of accidents, that would be retention or turnover, any kind of very important measures that imply that the training benefited directly the organization. And that was the highest level that Kirkpatrick suggested for the model. And in the beginning of the 90s, Jack Phillips came to add a 5th level, right? As if we were done with the 4 levels already. So he generously added a 5th level, which is the level of calculating the return on investment. In other words, asking whether we can monetize this impact, and hence transforming any kind of this indication into money. So in case you impacted customer satisfaction, very good. So now the customer satisfaction rate is 92% instead of 85%. And that would mean that this will increase the average order size per client by $5. And we have 1 million clients, so that's $5 million in return out of a customer service program that has been delivered at a cost of $2 million. And here you go, 5 minus 2 is 3, divided by 5, divided by 3 is 1, and that's 100% in terms of return on investment, which is a huge, by the way, return on investment. No investor could ever dream about 100% return for some kind of investment. So that's, in short, the models, the best or the most used models of evaluating training in organizations. I hope that was a crisp brief about them. If you have any question about that, please feel free to ask so. But otherwise, let's move quickly towards the challenges that are offered by these models. And by the way, there is a lot of praise for these models. And we are not here to question their effectiveness, because they have served the HR community massively through the change of paradigm and the business insight that they brought into every human resources discussion, every training and development plan since then. However, we would like to discuss the challenges that these models offer because we would like to find some solutions for them and further implement all these together. Although as you look at the pyramid, it looks very crisp and it looks very easy to implement, very recent studies done by CCIPD found out that only 18% of the training programs around the world are measured at level 3, which is the behavioral. Now, certainly 95% of programs are measured at level 1, which is the reaction. A little bit less is measured in terms of learning, but most importantly, you can see that when you go to the level 3, the number drops to 18%. And when you go to level 5, the number drops to around 5%. And one should ask themselves, why only 5% of the training programs are measured against return on investment? Certainly, there are challenges there, and that's reflected on the low number of programs to which return on investment is happening nowadays. So there are two sets of challenges that I'd like to share with you today. The first set of challenges is mostly hypothetical, so it's more on the concept of how these models have been conceived altogether. And the second one is, or the second set is more on the pragmatic and practical kind of challenges that we mostly can find solutions for. So the first challenge, hypothetically, is the challenge of isolation. And by isolation, we mean how we can really find the exclusive contribution of a training program on the most important KPIs of an organization. How can I be sure that whenever I deliver a leadership program to reduce turnover, that the turnover reduction is due to the leadership program and not due to a crisis where people cannot find opportunities outside the organization? So as a matter of fact, the impact of the training gets mixed with other influencers. Some are internal and the others are external to the organization. And that's why isolating the impact of the training on these KPIs or these metrics that are very important for the organization becomes challenging. It's not impossible, it's doable, but it is challenging. The second challenge is the challenge of linearity. And as I told you, there is an underlying assumption about the levels that each level feeds the one on top of it. So the impact feeds the learning, and then the learning feeds the behavior feeds the reaction, or the impact, sorry, and the impact feeds the ROI. But let me share with you some counterexamples, right? What if you measure learning right by the end of the training and participant, because the information is still fresh in their mind, answer 100% correctly, but then on the next day or on the next week, they forget a lot about it? What if the trainer gets a negative review because he asked participants for discipline that they didn't show? Now, as we know, some participants do not appreciate discipline for training because they consider that training is an opportunity to just refresh and change before they come back to the job. It's not a learning event, it's a mostly entertaining event. So if the trainer gives some remarks for those people, he will end up getting very low marks on the happy sheets. But would that mean that they didn't benefit? Would that mean that they didn't change their behavior to the better? Let me share with you a short story about that. I was once delivering a course called Certified Training and Development Professional. And certainly it's attended by training and development professionals. And when I asked one of the participants upon starting, what were the objectives of this course, and based on which of them you decided to join, this participant said that I didn't have time to read the objectives before I joined. So I couldn't stop myself from telling her, I really would like that this would be the last time you join a course before reading the objectives. Because if you do that, you are the role model of training and development in your organization. How do you expect other participants to read? And as you can assume, my evaluation was very bad. The happy sheet scored very low. But do you think she will remember me every time she joins a training and she will read the objectives? I bet she would. So this means it's not always the case that the higher the satisfaction, the higher the behavioral change. Sometimes it's not the case. So that's another hypothetical challenge offered by the model. And the third hypothetical challenge is solutions. In other words, if things go south and the training does not deliver the aspired results, the offer only highlights the weaknesses. The model highlights them, but it does not offer solutions for them. It does not offer recommendations. And hence, that's why today we are delivering this webinar as well, hoping to find some of the solutions. Again, not because the model is bad, but in the academic field, critique for improvement is the bread and butter of all the researchers who aim to contribute to the knowledge of the audience and of the learners around the world. So these are the three hypothetical challenges. In terms of the practical challenges, there are four very important challenges that I would like to highlight in this webinar today as well. The first challenge is the challenge of competence. And by challenge of competence, I mean the competence of training and development professionals in calculating the ROI. And we could really see through meeting a lot of professionals that the expertise required to calculate the return on investment is sometimes not available in the organizations. And you can tell by just the mere fact that some L&D people start thinking about measuring the ROI after the training program. Although we absolutely know that, and if you want to measure the ROI, that's the first thing you need to do, even before your training needs analysis, or mostly the first step of your training needs analysis. The second challenge offered practically through the calculation of return on investment is time. And I believe some of you would relate very well with this challenge. In fact, some of the training programs that you plan and deliver or execute will require some time to show impact. And given the dynamics of how HR people are moving around the within organizations in the market nowadays, some training and development professionals start a program but then resign before they could see the training flourishes and gives its results altogether. So that's another challenge, but unfortunately, that's not a challenge that we can really resolve, because that's very external and it would really depend on the market dynamics and the market demand. The third practical challenge is the challenge with the line managers. Because evaluating the impact of training programs, especially at impact level or at ROI level, let alone the behavioral level, is impossible without significant involvement from line managers. You cannot do it by yourself. It's not possible. It's not accurate. It's not recommended. It's against business sense to do it by yourself. Your line managers need to be partnering with you throughout the process. And given the significant involvement that you require, sometimes their time is not available and they offer you a serious challenge right here. And certainly, the fourth challenge is a challenge of monetization, or in other words, the challenge of making sure we are transforming the benefits, which are intangible, correctly to money. Now, I have a question from Zoltan, and he is asking, do you think the ROI can be also non-financial? Getting new knowledge and sharing it with others. Well, that would be a benefit of training for sure, but that's not an ROI, because the ROI itself is a formula that takes as input only money. So if you go back to the formula, it's benefit expressed in currency minus cost expressed in currency divided by cost again, which is expressed in currency. So the formula itself does not accommodate for other metrics. So that's why you can say there are some intangible benefits of the training, but the return on investment is definitely financial. I hope I gave you an answer, Zoltan. Please let me know. So these are the 4 practical challenges that are offered by the model. Now, some of the solutions that I would like to share with you as well in that regard. And the first one is how to resolve the isolation problem. I hope you remember well the isolation problem. So the main problem here is to find the contribution factor. What do I mean by the contribution factor? Although I'm pretty sure that leadership development is not the only predictor of turnover, I would like to know the percentage of contribution of leadership development on turnover. And for that, I would suggest 3 ways of going around this problem. The first way is using worldwide benchmarks. There are a lot of research that are similar to your problems. So let's say if you go to ResearchGate, or if you read some academic articles, all right, or at least some reports from credible references, they will tell you that we have noticed that the impact of some leadership skills on the turnover accounts to 15%. Now, the problem with those benchmarks is that sometimes they are done not in your own country, not in your own industry. So in that case, you need to find out the recent relevant research that are the most similar to your own experience and consider this to be the contribution factor. If that's not appealing to you, the other way around is to do some data analytics on your own company, where you sample leaders, You study turnover rates in their department, and then you deploy an analytics project that will allow you to calculate a contribution factor that is specific to your own company. And the third practice, it's the least advisable, but it is also a practice, which is to take a scientific guess about the contribution factor. In other words, you would agree with the internal stakeholders on a good estimate of that factor. So you would say emotional intelligence would increase our sales by 3%. Do you think that assumption is valid, is plausible? Does it make sound business-wise? And it's not you only who have to agree about that. Other stakeholders have to say that, yes, this makes sense. Let's agree that that's a good number. So that's how you resolve the contribution factor or isolation problem. All right. I would highly recommend the second one, but the second one is time consuming and you might not have the luxury of time, neither the resources to do that. But in case you'd like to do that, I highly recommend it. The second problem that we suggested is the linearity problem. And how can I come around that? The first thing is to always seek first-hand feedback. What do I mean? I would like to recommend that you rely less often on the traditional methods like the happy sheets and the post-course exams, and try to analyze the input of these methods differently while adding some other ways of evaluating training. First of all, I'm really sad to see $1 million programs running an organization where I rarely see the training and development team attending not even a part of the training session. And then they would rely on the feedback of someone in the room. They would rely on the noise that people create, whether it is positive or negative. In both cases, that's not enough. So I would recommend you attend the training yourself. You measure not against the happiness of employees, of participants, but against the learning objectives. I would also suggest that you, prior to the training, brief your providers properly. And finally, please, 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 do not populate the training room with attendees just because you'd like to add more seats to the room. Not because your target is to train 1,000 employees. I would invite a participant who's irrelevant for the topic under the slogan that if he doesn't benefit from it, there's no harm in it. The second resolution to solution to the linearity problem is getting a little bit creative. It's adding some competitions, some incentives, some appealing projects instead of the traditional methods to ensure that people are really benefiting from the training, right? You don't have to go through the same thing. People will get bored and will start filling those questions automatically. And I promise you, if you add like a question about frying eggs, they will not read it and they will answer anyway. And three, focus less on the first two levels and dedicate more focus to the behavioral change. Spend less time on happy sheets and on pre and post test scores and more time on the behavioral change. That will save your time, will save participants' time, line managers' time, and will allow you more important evaluation because that's what counts. Okay, that's what counts. If everyone gets 100 on their post-course test, but no one changes their behavior, there is no benefit at all. To resolve the line management involvement, I would always say, treat those line managers as your clients, not as a mean to achieve your KPIs. So first, I'd like to invite you to be selective. Although you have 20 people in the room and they report to 20 different line managers, you can choose to involve not necessarily the 20, but mainly those who align with you on the importance of the training. And also, don't abuse those people. Choose to involve them only on the training programs that matter most for them, and less on the generic programs, right? So you don't have to measure each and every program at the ROI level. Be selective. Select, like, if there's a program that is costing you altogether $10,000, it's not worth to measure its ROI, because your time will add to the cost and will eat up the ROI altogether. The second is to sample instead of aiming for everyone. Maybe you send a survey about behavioral change for line managers and employees, a 360-degree assessment feedback. You don't have to receive answer from everyone. And when you report it to top management, you can say that a sample, which can be representative of the attendees of training, have shown us the following result, and that's totally acceptable. So it's okay if some managers do not participate. And finally, incentivize the managers to do that. I'm not saying pay them money. I'm saying in the reports that you send for XComs, for directors, for VPs, make sure you highlight that those people participated, and somehow make sure that those who did not participate, whether in the TNA or in the evaluation of the training, or even in enrolling people from their department, to feel like they envy those who participated. And you can create this kind of feeling by creating positive vibes and doing your training perfectly. So that way, people will be eager and they will go and push their line managers to be more involved in the evaluation process altogether. The final problem that I would like to discuss with you, and I hope that that would be also enough time for the webinar to discuss, is the monetization problem. In other words, how we can transform the benefits into money, right? And the first thing is to perfect your training needs analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no way to measure the ROI correctly if you do not establish a clear line of sight between the business impact and the behavioral change resulting from the training program. If you cannot tell how a program on presentation skills will help your sales team to be more convincing and will help them to minimize the price sensitivity of clients, and how that price sensitivity will contribute to your margins, and how much this training has a contribution factor, and how much additional margin you got because of the training, and you didn't draw all this plan perfectly in the training needs analysis, ladies and gentlemen, don't bother yourself trying to calculate the ROI. It will not happen. The second way to resolve that is monetizing big programs and monetizing them only once. If you have an onboarding program that happens all the time, it has to be like have a sizable cost and repetitive, so that it is worth measuring and taking action against. That's why it is counterproductive to measure a program if it costs you $10,000. And by the way, if the program gets repeated, you only have to measure the ROI once, because ROI is an expected value, right? If you invest in gold once and you find out that this investment is worth it, then you don't go and calculate the ROI another time. You just go and buy yourself another bunch of stocks or bunch of gold bonds, etc. I'm not an expert in that area, right? You buy yourself a gold bar. And finally, in order to ensure that you can transform all the benefits into money, you need to learn your business. You need to be a business person with L&D expertise and not an L&D professional serving the business. So that's how you understand the most important indicators that the top management in your organization is seeking to impact, and then you will plan accordingly, and you will have better chances of monetizing these accordingly. So with this said, I come to the end of this webinar. And if you don't mind, if you feel like you need more skills, more competence, more practice in that area, I would really recommend that you have a look at one of the new courses that we are launching at Meirc this year, dedicated specifically to all kinds of practical application of calculating the return on investment. We spend less time on theories, and we spend most of the time taking very practical, most common training programs that companies deliver in our region, and we ensure that we do the whole math from the monetization, how it happens, to the contribution factor, to understanding its impact on the business, all the way. It's a 5-day course. It ran in August already, and there is another session by the end of November happening as well. You can attend it in person, or you can join it online as well. Please feel free to visit the website to know more about it. If you would like to also have more information or get in touch directly with me, I am sharing my email in the chat. For those of you who don't like emails, I will also share my mobile number. If you would like to give me a call or even send me a WhatsApp message, I'll share with you the brochure of the course, or share with you the link, or answer any questions in that regard. Having said that, I would like to allow the final section of this webinar for your questions. Should you have any question related to the topic, please feel free to ask it right now, whether on the chat or you would like to open up your microphone. Both are the same. Asir, I hope I'm reading the name correctly. Go ahead, please.
It's Asir, not Asir.
Asir, okay,
yes,
okay.
Exactly. Nice to meet you today, sir.
Thank you so much.
I have a small question regarding the isolation challenge.
Yeah.
Simply, maybe not all these methods may not be applicable. So if I take another approach by comparing groups who had the training and other groups who did not have the training, for example, measuring the skills, could that be transferred to ROI?
Yes, absolutely. If you have the right way to monetize the benefit. So what you're
sorry, would you say it again, please?
Yes, let me elaborate a little bit. What you're trying to do, Asir, here is what we call a control group. So what you do, you offer the training for a part of the audience, and you don't for another part of the audience. And that's a way of measuring the difference in the outcome. All right? Now, if the outcome difference is monetized, you can isolate and measure. So in short, yes, it is a good way. The problem with that is sometimes you cannot justify for your company why you are offering the training for a group and not offering it for another. You see my point? So you cannot sometimes...
It may be in this case, it's just a step. They are scheduled, the other group is scheduled for another time, for example.
Yeah, if the time in between, is enough to measure the impact. What if the impact requires 6 months to show? Then you will have to put the other group on the waiting list for the next 6 months. You see my point? So if
yes, I got it.
practical,
Thank you very much. I got
if
it.
practical, why not? You can do that.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Other questions? Sultan, the presentation will be shared as recording on the website, as I mentioned in the beginning. So the whole webinar will be posted on our website and on the YouTube channels as well. All right. I'll allow maybe half a minute if someone would like to give me a sign that they have a question.
Yes, good afternoon, Rabia. This is Makram. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was quite enlightening and helpful. However, I'm interested to know more about the 5 days training on return on investment, and would that include some practical examples on how can you actually measure ROI for trainings such as leadership, for example? Leadership is one of the most demanded training topics according to statistics, and it's one of the most difficult probably to monetize. Yes. So in the 5 days program, would you be providing practical, maybe examples, case studies, best practices from applications that have actually monetized leadership? I know there's no one way, there might be different ways. You can measure a drop in turnover of employees, redundancy might drop, and then the cost of recruitment might drop, and you can prove and measure and capture that, then this can be a good presentation of your ROI. So my question is, would the 5 days program provide such hands-on examples that can help us actually in implementing this? And thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Makram, for the question. Let me pull up the actual outline of the program, right? Please, can you confirm that you see my screen? You can see the website?
Yes, clear.
All right. So that's the course outline, as a matter of fact. And as you can see, we start briefly by explaining the ROI formula, and then we will spend the 5 days on 5 case studies. The first one happens to be ROI on leadership development program. The second one is on health and safety. The third one is on IT programs or software programs. We're taking Excel here as an example. The fourth one is customer service, and the fifth one is self-led programs, mainly on cybersecurity. I chose that because I know that it comes a lot in terms of onboarding, and I would like also to monetize the benefit of the self-led programs, not only the instructor-led programs. So as you can see, the course is fully practical. There is like very few hypotheses and theories, and it's mainly hands-on. You roll your sleeves up, and if some participant will come with their own practice, why not? We can cater for that, and that would be a great opportunity. If you have your own topics that you'd like to add, if time allows, we will do that as well.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Great. More questions?
No.
Nariman, you're asking for the formulas, and I need to say right here, ladies and gentlemen, that the formula the formula itself is very easy, but the work is about calculating the benefits. And there is no one formula to do that. It's an exercise that you need to apply every single time. And that's why the course is designed to cover all
Hello, Doctor. How are you?
And-
Welcome. How are you?
and to ensure that the best or the most common training programs are covered during the 5 days.
Yes, Rabia. Yeah, okay, thank you. This is why it's very, very challenging, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why one has to spend some time in practicing those things rather than just, the theory is very easy. The practice is what we currently need. Great. So I guess that's it for the day, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you so much for participating. Thank you for your time and for always being here, for developing yourself and being a role model for others. Saying that, I would like to wish each and every one of you a great remainder of the day. Please feel free to get in touch. I'm gonna drop you the link to the page that I'm sharing here on the website as well. So in case you'd like to visit the website and know more about the course or ask for more details, maybe download the brochure, you will be able to do that. With that, I'd like to wish you a great remainder of the day. God bless you and see you soon.
Meirc.com